For fans of Formula One, there really is no place like home. Whether it's a home race for a team or for a driver, there's nothing quite like a race in your own backyard.
Growing up as a kid, Melbourne was always the first race.
It's definitely going to be super special to have Australia back as the first round.
Melbourne, yeah, for me it needs to be the place to start the season. It's one of the best, if not as a whole, the best Grand Prix on the calendar if we look at the whole experience.
You know, the first race in Australia used to be like that for so long. Everyone loves coming here.
By 2002, Melbourne was well established as the first chapter in any new Formula One season. But in the 6 years since Albert Park had taken its place on the Formula One calendar, Australian fans hadn't been able to throw their support behind one of their own.
Definitely Schumacher. He's going to have a hat-trick.
Enter Mark Webber.
An interesting phone call. I was in the UK and my management rang me and said it's on, but for 2 races. So I had a 2-race contract, which was Australia and Malaysia. So it was a gateway in, but it was still very nerve-wracking to start my career in such a short contract.
Mark Webber remains the only Australian to ever make their Formula One debut in Melbourne. And what he did on debut in 2002 was simply magical. The first Australian to race Formula One at Albert Park, Webber defied all the odds to cross the line in 5th place and score points on debut. And an impromptu visit to the podium.
Yeah, the race itself was absolutely just mind-blowing. Of course, from the first corner where Ralph and Rubens had a huge impact with each other. Turned out the attrition was in my favour. I had Big Costello close down on me in the end. And I was actually quite relaxed when he arrived. I'm like, yeah, I can handle you, even though you were Toyota with a juggernaut, but I'm going to make it as hard as possible for him. It turned out that he made a mistake and the bacon was ours.
Webber's breakthrough started a run of Australians in Formula One that hasn't stopped to this day. And so it would seem only fitting that, as Webber's Formula One career came to a close, his replacement at Red Bull Racing would be another Australian. Like Webber, Daniel Ricciardo would score his first career points at Albert Park in 2012, quickly establishing himself as a fan favourite the world over. In 2014, in his first race as Webber's successor at Red Bull, Ricciardo converted a front row start into his first career podium. It was a fairy tale that seemed too good to be true, and in the end,
Daniel Ricciardo has been sensationally stripped of his second placing.
It was. With a local on the Albert Park podium still eluding Aussie fans, step forward Oscar Piastri. A championship winner in Formula 3 and Formula 2 on his way to F1, Piastri was one of the hottest prospects to come onto the grid when he was announced as a McLaren driver for the 2023 season.
I'm not sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing that it wasn't the first round for my debut, but I think it's one of the favourites amongst the paddock. You know, obviously I'm biased. I think to have that as a season opener and really with the good vibe, the good atmosphere, it's a nice place to start off.
Like Webber and Ricciardo before him, Piastri would record his first career points in Melbourne. Piastri's move to McLaren opened the door for another Aussie young gun to take the next step in his motorsport journey, when Jack Doohan took over the reserve driver role vacated by Piastri in 2023.
It was just before the summer break, mid-season at the Spa Grand Prix, and it was on the Monday after the Grand Prix when Carlos was announced that he was signing for Williams. I knew that was the piece, let's say, in the chessboard that needed to be moved before I could have my slot, and luckily it did. So from that night, on Monday night, I realised that I'll be racing.
With an Australian driver yet to officially stand on the Albert Park podium, could Jack Doohan possibly do the unthinkable? Because as Mark Webber, Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri have proved, anything really is possible at a home Grand Prix. And when Formula One comes to Melbourne, expect nothing less.